Hi everyone, it's Chloe.
And Dani.
And welcome back to another episode of Trannytot.
Hot douche. Woo! I went a little low there. Hot douche.
Today we're going to be talking about something that I think a lot of trans women feel, is how the T relates to or is involved in LGBT.
Exactly. Because I feel like that's often a point of discussion amongst people who are not the T in LGBT, especially the G, because, well, we'll get into that.
Yeah. And so I think what brings this topic up is in the past year, there has been a lot of, forward motion in the LGBT community.
There's been a lot of trans presence in the media, in society.
And I think in the LGBT movement, the focus has mostly been on the G and the L. With same-sex marriage now. It's just marriage because everyone can marry. But talking past tense, same-sex marriage, and gay rights and all of that. And a lot of the time I find, and history finds, that trans women are really involved in those movements, but trans people's rights weren't necessarily thought about until much, much more recently.
Well, for example, Stonewall. As we all know, there's a movie that's coming out or has come out. I know. That has received a lot of flack from the trans community in particular,
and the black
the black community,
and the black LGBT community.
Primarily because most of the people in it are white.
They whitewashed the whole movie.
And only white gay males are being portrayed as starting Stonewall, and when history tells us that is not the case, the first stones that were thrown were by trans women
and
color.
drag queens. So, and I think in history, you look back in the movement of the whole gay rights thing, and prominent leaders have been trans women. And you see them fight so hard for their LGB counterparts, but in the long run, not many people have focused on trans rights. And so we come to the point now where we have to discuss, okay, now what is the LGB doing for T? Are they embracing us? Yeah, kind of. Are they fighting for our rights? Some, but not all, for certain. So what I think is it's time for the LGB to start fighting for trans rights.
Right.
To start standing up.
I think there was kind of like a pecking order as far as rights were being concerned. It seemed like the national conscience could not handle gay rights, trans rights, blah, 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 all at the same time. So over the past decade or so, well, more than that, gay rights were such a hot button issue until maybe a year ago. Or even before that, when states started to legalize same-sex marriage. And I feel like now that that's out of the way, we're finally able to concentrate on the T, the last acronym. Well, the last acronym could be Q, depending upon some people. Which that's a battle, that people deal with too, is queer questioning, what is queer?
What is it, LGBTQIA?
Is it that long now?
Yeah, so lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, indifferent, asexual. I just call it the quilt bag.
I just call it the rainbow.
The quilt bag.
The skittle bag.
But to go off what Dani was saying is I feel like, yes, we've gotten past all of these issues for the gay community, and now it's time to focus on trans issues, but as far as push from the LGBT or LGB, they're stagnant. There's not a movement. There's not that energy, that push that there was behind the whole gay rights movement. And
Right.
trans people are being killed every day. Trans people are being, hurt and, what's the word I'm looking for?
Not just on a national scale here, but globally.
Globally. And, they're being told they can't go into the bathrooms that they assign with, and that they can't change their sex on their birth certificate, and they can't work because of their gender.
Well,
so,
what was it? God, this was like a year ago, I think, around this time, in the state of South Carolina, the state that I'm from. There was a queer teen who has recently come out as a trans girl, that went in to get her driver's license picture taken, and they denied her the right to have her driver's license picture taken
with makeup on.
Yeah, with makeup on, as she feels like she is supposed to be. And it went through the courts, and it was fought, and finally she was able to wear makeup and be herself for her fucking driver's license picture.
It's ridiculous to me.
Which is a proud moment for me as a South Carolinian, to come from a state that I actually departed like almost 4 years ago. What's today, actually? The 26th? Oh my God, 4 years today. I moved up here to Minneapolis for grad school and to transition from South Carolina. And it blows my mind that in 4 years, that amount of change has already happened in South Carolina. Gay marriage is legalized, but also...
Thank you, Supreme Court.
Yeah. The trans girl, I can't remember her name, is able to... Any trans person is able to go in and get their ID picture taken.
And other issues trans people face are like healthcare and housing and jobs. Trans people are not forced, but kind of forced by no availability of jobs into sex work and into different things that, they may not want to do, but out of necessity they do. And I'm not discrediting sex work, because that is to me, a viable field of work.
It is a viable field of work.
But I want trans people to be able to, have access to everything and not be discriminated against because of their gender identity. And that's something that there really needs to be a push for, and there's not much push right now.
And as the decades roll on, you might see like a similar vibe to the workplace with trans inclusiveness, like there was in the 1950s and 60s when women started entering the workforce. The whole glass ceiling kind of thing, which is still unfortunately happening today. So I feel like, there's so much growth that needs to happen on that front alone. Like, companies need to be more inclusive. They need to have policy. Housing needs to have policy on this, because like you mentioned, so many people have died because of this. So many people have committed suicide in the community. I think it's like half of the LGBT community that commits suicide is trans. So, and then there's like an even larger chunk of that, which is, I think, trans women of color. No.
And it's the statistic that I read in the last, what is this survey called? I'll link it down below, if I remember the name. But it was like over 60% of people who identify as trans have either thought about committing suicide or like tried to commit suicide, either successfully or unsuccessfully. But that just shows you that people feel like they should no longer live because it's easier. And
I feel like they have no place in the world. Nothing to relate to.
And I think as people who align themselves in the LGBT community, it's time to fight for your trans brothers and sisters, because I can speak personally. I dedicated my life to the marriage movement. I volunteered, I organized, and I dedicated my life to that. Not only because, my brother is gay, not only because I have a bunch of gay friends, but I wanted to see that progression. And I think it's time to see progression for trans people, because we're hurting. We need as much help as we can get. And
just from a personal standpoint, with one of my jobs where I work, you know, I work in an adult store that primarily caters to gay males. So, you know, guys come in there, and keep in mind, like I've had this job for like over 3.5 years. So the regulars that come in there have seen me all throughout my various stages of transition. And those that know and are like paying attention are more congratulatory, but the ones that don't know come walking in there, and first, A, you're hit with misogyny because they're like, there's a girl working here, and then B, if I feel comfortable enough disclosing my trans status with them, I'm immediately hit with the usual questions by gay men. The ignorant questions.
Bullshit.
Like, have you had the surgery yet? Oh my God, I had no idea. You look so authentic. I thought you were a real girl. That kind of shit. Like, I had to hand it to one guy one night when I was working. This is like a few months ago, because he was saying these outlandishly inappropriate things and was seriously offending me. And I think his friends knew that he was offending me. And I just had to be like, look, this is not cool. This is the way that this is supposed to be. Change your tone. Know when you're being an ignoramus, and learn and grow from it.
And that's the thing. I think a lot of mostly gay men have this, like, idea or attitude towards trans women. And I'm not saying every gay man. I have a lot of gay friends who I adore and love, and they feel the same about me. But there's this overall sense that I get from gay men that kind of, like, they discount your identity.
Well, I feel like part of that comes from when gay rights were such a hot button issue, like, mainstream society would slump everyone into the same mold, like trans people, gay men, because it was, you know, a man who was outwardly feminine sleeping with men. That was seen as a disgrace. That was seen as, you know, not acceptable. And then there's, you know, men who were men and transitioned to women. So to the mainstream kind of just like everyday person who doesn't really understand these issues, like, they don't see the difference.
No.
And because of that stigma and shame, like, that gay men have internalized, thinking, well, you know, I'm not a trans woman, I'm not a, you know, this or that, I'm a gay man who happens to be effeminate or what have you. You know, I'm going to try and distance myself as much as possible from, you know, trans women, because I'm not that way, and I don't want people to see me as that way, which that in and of itself is misogyny.
And even, like, at Pride, I have heard so many things about trans people being at Pride. Like, it pisses me off. Like comments like, this is gay Pride.
Pride is for everyone. Pride is for every fucking shade of the damn rainbow, honey.
And that's the kind of shit that, you know, trans people face from a community.
We're gonna have to
that
put the beep on here.
Oh no, I'm a cuss. That's the kind of shit that trans people face from the LGBT or LGB. That is not only disheartening because that's the community you feel like you belong to, but also that is also most likely the community that is going to step up and help.
And I think that while, you know, each of the things are different, each of the acronyms are different, I think that our process of coming to terms with who we are, our identity, bringing our identities forth to the world and being open and honest with who we are is a very similar process.
Shit, I came out as a gay man once.
Me too.
Okay. So,
I like being a lady better.
I do too. So, I mean, I know there are going to be different opinions on this issue, and I know even some trans women don't want the T to be included in the LGB. I personally don't feel that way. I personally think that we should be inclusive, because
the fucking
power of numbers, right? But let us know what you guys think about this issue, and if we didn't address anything you guys want us to talk about on this particular topic, we can make a round 2.
Or bring it up in the comments section, and we'll tackle it there.
Yeah. But as usual, we love you guys so much.
Thank you for watching.
This has been another episode of Trannytot.
Hot Dish.